What's up everyone and welcome back to the channel. Apple just released iOS 26 Beta 2, exactly 2 weeks after the initial developer beta. And let me tell you, this one is packed. From visual refinements to functional upgrades and hidden tweaks, this is the kind of update that makes testing a beta actually exciting again. In this full breakdown, we're going deep. Not just a quick list, I'm going to walk you through everything Apple changed, improved, and added in Beta 2, and how it compares to Beta 1 in real-world use. Let's dive in. Before we talk features, let's quickly cover the install and version details. On my iPhone 16 Pro Max, Beta 2 came in at 3.84 gigabytes. That's a big file, and pretty typical for an early beta cycle where Apple is still layering in major features and frameworks. If you're updating from Beta 1, be prepared for a long download and install time, especially if you're low on storage. The build number for this release is 23A5276F. That F at the end is a good sign. It usually means we're moving closer to a stable build. If you remember, Beta 1 ended with a U after its re-release due to the bricking issue, so we're already seeing progression here. Also, the modem firmware has been updated to version 2.03.00 on iPhone 16 models. This may help with cellular connectivity and stability, although I haven't seen major differences yet in that department. Let's kick things off with something that's both visually obvious and quietly satisfying: the return of wallpaper movement. In iOS 26 Beta 2, the default wallpaper finally reacts to movement. When you tilt your device, the background shifts with a parallax effect, just like Apple showed during WWDC. This didn't work at all in Beta 1. It felt static and unfinished. Now it's back and smooth as ever. It's a small touch, but it adds depth and polish that really makes iOS 26 feel more premium. Next, let's talk about the redesigned Control Center, which was a major complaint in Beta 1. Users found the new layout cluttered and difficult to read. The blur effect behind the controls was too weak, making everything blend together. In Beta 2, that's been fixed. The blur is now stronger, especially behind large toggles. It helps isolate elements and creates a more defined space between the foreground and background. Also, the overall glass effect now leans toward frosted glass. It's less transparent, but more polished and easier on the eyes. Everything just feels tighter and more refined. Apple didn't drastically change the design, but the tweaks they made here go a long way in making the interface more usable. These same improvements carry over to Notification Center. There's more background blur behind each notification bubble, and the shadows are slightly deeper, helping with readability. This is something you really notice when swiping down from the lock screen, especially in dark mode, where the background often clashed with lighter notifications. Apple also adjusted the animation for jiggle mode. In Beta 1, it was sluggish. There was a delay between the tap and the icons starting to wiggle. Now, in Beta 2, it's faster and more fluid. When you long press and enter edit mode, the new edit animation glides in with a slick little push to the side, making the whole interaction feel more intentional and polished. Safari gets one of the biggest functional overhauls in this beta, and not just visually. If you were annoyed by missing buttons or confusing menus in Beta 1, Apple clearly heard the feedback. Let's break it down. First up, something that shouldn't have gone missing in the first place. In Beta 1, Safari only had a back button. Even if you had visited multiple pages, there was no visible way to go forward unless you used the swipe gesture or held the back button. That's been fixed. Now, the forward button is back, sitting next to the back arrow, just like it should. It sounds minor, but it restores the fundamental functionality you expect in a browser. Apple also made significant UI tweaks to the tab bar and menu system. The All Tabs button, which was previously up in the top right corner, has now been moved to the bottom right near your thumb. The new tab button also moved to the bottom left. This might seem small, but it makes a huge difference in one-handed use, especially on larger Pro Max devices. Inside the tab menu, we've got a couple of nice touches. Manage Tab Groups has a new icon next to it, making it easier to spot. The Add Bookmark icon now shows a book with a plus symbol instead of just the book. Clearer, more intuitive. There's a new option to select multiple tabs at once. When you do that, you can close them all at once, move them, pin them, or copy all the URLs with one tap. This batch control was totally missing in Beta 1. On the Start page, your profile avatar is now fully visible at the top of the screen. In Beta 1, there was just a small icon. You had to tap it to find out which profile you were using. Now, your name or icon is shown clearly, which makes multi-profile browsing a lot easier. Finally, the layout in Tab View is more compact. Before, the bottom panel with Private, Untitled, and other tabs almost overflowed off the screen. Now it's been centered and resized, making everything easier to read and manage. All in all, Safari in Beta 2 feels more like a final product, whereas Beta 1 felt like a rushed draft. Now let's talk about the Camera app. Because while the changes here may seem small, they are exactly the kind of updates that make daily use feel smoother and more responsive. In iOS 26 Beta 1, enabling or disabling flash and night mode gave you zero feedback. The tiny glyph icon changed, but that was it. No text, no clarity. Not ideal, especially if you're in a hurry trying to capture a low-light shot. With Beta 2, that's been fixed. Now when you tap the flash icon, you get a clear label, Flash Auto or Flash Off. Same goes for night mode. It now tells you exactly what state it's in with a floating label that appears briefly after each tap. It's a small quality of life improvement, but if you're into mobile photography or just take a lot of photos at night, you'll appreciate the clarity. When switching over to video mode, the top left corner used to show both the resolution and video format, like 4K HDR at 30 frames per second. In Beta 2, Apple has simplified this by only showing resolution and frame rate, so now you'll just see 4K 30. Tap it, and you still get the format selector. It's just hidden from the default view to reduce visual clutter. It's a more minimal UI, and if you're not constantly switching formats, it's a cleaner approach. However, one interesting twist here. The video format setting is no longer available in the Settings app Camera Formats. It seems Apple is trying to move all format controls into the Camera app directly. That might be confusing at first, but in the long run, it means fewer settings menus and more real-time control. Next, let's talk about something that might just revolutionize the way you track deliveries: the Wallet app. In Beta 2, Apple added a new splash screen for the Orders section. When you open Wallet Orders, it now asks for permission to auto-track packages from the Mail app. You can choose to allow or disallow this. But if you do allow it, Wallet will scan your inbox for order confirmations and automatically add them here. This is one of those quietly genius updates. It streamlines the delivery process and keeps all your shipments in one place, without you needing to manually copy tracking numbers or switch between apps. And just like that, the Wallet app becomes more than just cards and passes. It's now a lightweight delivery hub. You might not think of the Notes app as the sexiest part of iOS, but in Beta 2, Apple made some clever tweaks to the text selection toolbar that actually change the way you interact with content. In Beta 1, when you selected text, you always saw the default formatting tools: heading, title, tables, and so on. But let's be honest, how often do you actually use those?
Now, in Beta 2, when you highlight text, the toolbar defaults to the more commonly used actions, things like bold, italic, underline, create link, and so on. It's subtle, but it feels like Notes is now adapting to how most people actually use it, not how Apple thinks we should. It's these kinds of human-centric changes that make beta testing worth it. There's also a small change to indentation icons in the formatting bar. Previously, the left indent appeared before the right indent. In Beta 2, they've swapped positions, so now it goes right indent to left indent. It's tiny, but it lines up better with how the cursor moves when you're working on structured notes or outlines. Now here's something that quietly made waves. Apple has adjusted the Apple Intelligence plus ChatGPT settings in Beta 2. And this shows us how serious they are about privacy and control. In Settings greater than Siri and Apple Intelligence greater than ChatGPT, you'll now see a new section called Advanced Capabilities. This used to just say Daily Limit, but now it's split into two separate limits: image requests, other requests. This gives you better visibility into how much you're using each capability, especially important for power users testing out ChatGPT via Siri integrations. There's also a small but telling change. Confirm ChatGPT requests is now simply labeled Confirm Requests, and the description underneath has been reworded slightly to be more general and digestible. Apple is slowly streamlining this experience so that by the time iOS 26 launches to the public, even non-tech savvy users will understand what's happening and feel like they're in control. This next feature flew under the radar, but in my opinion, it might be one of the biggest changes in iOS 26. It's called Recovery Assistant, and it's exactly what it sounds like. If your iPhone becomes unresponsive or fails to boot normally, the new Recovery Assistant can help you restore it without needing a Mac or a PC. Let me say that again. No more plugging your iPhone into a computer just to fix boot issues. This is huge, especially for people who don't own a Mac or PC, are traveling, just want an easier recovery process. It's still in early testing, and Apple only briefly mentioned it in the release notes, but this is a major step forward for user independence and mobile-first troubleshooting. Expect this to evolve over the next few betas, but the groundwork has officially been laid. Let's shift over to the Messages app, which received several functional and UI updates. In Beta 1, tapping the Info I button in a group chat brought up every possible attachment category: photos, videos, locations, wallet items, even if none of those were present. Now in Beta 2, the Messages app is context-aware. It only shows you the categories that are actually present in that chat. So if there are no links or documents shared, you won't see empty placeholders, just what's relevant. It makes navigating attachments and shared content feel lighter and more intuitive. Another big fix: animated wallpapers used to lag heavily when used in the background of messages, especially when typing or opening threads. In Beta 2, that lag is almost completely gone. Scrolling feels smoother, and you're less likely to see dropped frames or stutter. When you tap the Filters option, like filtering unknown senders, there's now a checkmark indicator showing which filter is currently active. This was missing in Beta 1. You'd select a filter, but there'd be no visual feedback confirming your choice. Now you get immediate confirmation, making the filtering system much more usable. Let's dive into something you probably use every day without even thinking about it: screenshots. In iOS 26 Beta 2, Apple quietly enhanced the screenshot interface, and it makes a noticeable difference in how productive you can be with one simple action. In Beta 1, after taking a screenshot, sometimes you'd see options like Ask, to query Siri or ChatGPT, or Image Search, but only sporadically. Beta 2 fixes that inconsistency. Now, whenever you screenshot something, a website, a settings page, a conversation, the Ask and Search with Image options appear reliably at the bottom. It's small, but it reduces friction. You can now screenshot, tap once, get context, analyze text, or ask ChatGPT without ever leaving the flow. It's Apple's invisible productivity in action. Let's talk about something that all iPhone users eventually rely on, especially when battery anxiety kicks in: low power mode. In Beta 2, Apple has updated the description text for low power mode in the battery settings. Previously, it was vague, just reduces background activity to save battery. Now it's a bit more comprehensive and informative. Low power mode temporarily reduces background activity like downloads and mail fetch until your iPhone can be fully charged. It's a tiny UX update, but one that reflects Apple's move toward greater transparency. They're educating users with every tap, not just hiding features behind assumptions. Beta 2 also ships with a laundry list of bug fixes, some obvious, some hidden. and a bunch of visual consistency improvements that polish the entire experience. One of the most annoying bugs in Beta 1 was the focus mode overlapping the lock screen widgets. For users who always stay in a focus profile, it caused visual clutter. Beta 2 fixes this completely. Widgets and focus status now occupy separate vertical zones with better padding and spacing. Also fixed, a strange gap near the bottom of the lock screen that appeared when animated album artwork was enabled. That gap has been removed, giving the now playing interface a much more polished look. Another long-time annoyance? The swipe to clear animation for notifications was sluggish and inconsistent in Beta 1. In Beta 2, the clear gesture is finally smooth, fast, and matches Apple's fluid animation style seen elsewhere in iOS. This makes dismissing notifications feel more satisfying, and it brings back that familiar sense of iOS polish. Across the Settings app, Beta 2 features slightly reduced padding between sections and headers. At first, this might not even register consciously, but the tighter vertical spacing makes the app feel more modern and dense without overwhelming you. It's especially noticeable when navigating deeper menus like accessibility or privacy. These layout tweaks suggest Apple is still fine-tuning its new design direction for iOS 26, especially on larger screens like the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Here's an interesting visual behavior that might be a bug, or it might be intentional. In Beta 2, if you remove one app from your dock, the remaining icons now stay left aligned, instead of recentering like they used to in previous versions. This creates a bit of an unbalanced look, especially if you only keep 2 or 3 apps in the dock. It's unclear if this is a UI regression or part of Apple's new left-aligned by design philosophy, which we've seen creeping into other parts of iOS 26. Either way, it's something to keep an eye on in future betas. Apple also listed a ton of app-specific bug fixes in the official Beta 2 release notes. Among them, TV app, playback bugs and layout issues resolved. Image Playground, fixed a crash when applying filters quickly. Journal app, improved stability when importing large photo batches. App Store, improved performance and install reliability. App installation, solved a rare issue where apps would get stuck during download. The takeaway? Apple's clearly focused on refining the foundation before introducing any major new features in Beta 3. Let's now move on to a major concern for all beta users: performance and battery life. From day one, iOS 26 Beta 1 had frequent microstutters, especially in Messages Spotlight app switcher, settings transitions. Beta 2 smooths out many of these. Animations feel tighter, especially when switching apps or opening Control Center, and settings menus no longer freeze up randomly. To back this up, a Geekbench 6 test on iPhone 16 Pro Max showed single-core 3,463, multi-core 8,563. That's a modest bump from Beta 1, but more importantly, it feels faster. Benchmarks aside, the real-world usability has improved noticeably. Now, let's address the battery. Beta 1 was infamous for draining fast and overheating, especially on devices with always-on display or live wallpapers. With Beta 2, battery life is still not perfect, but it is more stable, less prone to overnight drops, and runs cooler during charging and multitasking. It no longer feels like your phone is cooking itself in your pocket, though some warmth remains when using power-heavy apps like Maps, Camera, or Safari. From a daily usage standpoint, users report 1 to 1.5 more hours of screen-on time compared to Beta 1. As expected, developer Beta 3 was already released on Monday, July 7th, continuing Apple's pattern of 2-week updates. That version introduces even more refinements, and we'll cover it in full very soon. But the real milestone now is the public beta. Apple confirmed it will launch in mid-July, and based on release timing, we expect the first public beta around July 15th. This will be the first time non-developers get access to iOS 26. So Apple's goal is to polish the experience just enough to avoid massive backlash. If you're on the developer beta, expect small bug fixes and UI tweaks in the coming weeks. If you're holding out for the public beta, your wait is almost over. That wraps up everything new, changed, fixed, and improved in iOS 26 Beta 2. We covered UI fixes and enhancements, feature improvements in camera, wallet, Siri, notes. Hidden design changes performance and battery life updates, and what to expect next from Apple. I'll keep testing this on my main device and reporting new findings. Let me know in the comments. What feature or fix stood out most to you? Smash the like button if this breakdown helped you out. And of course, subscribe if you want more deep dives on every iOS update. See you in the next video, probably Beta 3 coverage dropping soon.